ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेषु भिग्यस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ते यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। स्वस्ति अस्तु विश्वस्य खलः प्रसीदतां ध्यायन्तु भूतानि शिवं मिथो धिया। मनश्च भद्रं भजता दधोक्षजे आवेश्यतां नो मतिरप्यहेतुकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 9, beginning from text number 1. In the previous chapter we read the story of King Bharat, how he gave up his kingdom and then was living in the Himalayas and became attached to a deer, and he died thinking of the deer and became a deer, and then he died as a deer because in that life he remembered his past life. So he was always meditating on the Lord, avoiding association of anybody. And then he gave up his body while standing in the Gandaki river. So now it is described how he was born as a son of a Brahmana and how he acted in that life. अथ कश्चिद् द्विजवरस्य अंगिरः प्रवरस्य शमदम तपस्वाध्यायाध्यं त्याग संतोष प्रतीक्षा प्रश्रय विद्या अनुसूयात्मज्ञानानंद युक्तस्य आत्मसदृश सुतशीलाचार रूपादार्य गुण नवसोदर्या अंगजा बभूव मिथुनं च यवेश्यां भार्यायाम्. So Sukadeva Goswami says that, O king, there was a Brahmana who was in the dynasty of sage Angirasa, and he was very well controlled in his mind, and senses, very devoted to austerity and study of scriptures, chanting of the mantras, to studying Vedas, and receiving guests nicely. He was very satisfied, tolerant, humble, and knowledgeable about the ritualistic part of the Vedas. And he was free from any fault-finding tendency. And he knew about the self, the self in the body, and he was happy leading a pious life. So he had a very good character, and then he had two wives who were also well behaved, and from the senior wife, elder wife, he had 9 sons, all of them as good as the father, well behaved, educated, good character, and generous. And from the younger wife he had a twin born, one boy and one sister. So he had 11 children from 2 wives. So Sri Vishnath says that Navme Jadatatasya Gayatriya Pyasikshanam Kedara Karma Devya Api Chatanamitiriyate. He is giving a summary of the 9th chapter, that in this 9th chapter there is a description about the dull-headedness of Bharat and how he was not even able to learn the Gayatri Mantra, and then how he was engaged in taking care of the fields by his brothers, and then he was caught by some tribal people to be offered for human sacrifice in front of the Devi. And then Devi, she killed everybody and protected Bharat. So this is described here in this 9th chapter. And Viras Gotrajanam Pravarasya Shreshthasya Samadhiyuktasya. So in India there is something called Gotra. What is the name of the family or dynasty? What you call as surname. So originally Brahma had 9 or 10 sons, and everybody traces one's lineage to him. So they are the original Prajapatis, or descendants of them. So you hear sometimes people's name ending as Vasishtha or Garga. So these are names of the sages in which dynasty they come. So everybody is coming in the line of some sage. So that is the meaning of, there is a Gotra and there is a Pravara. So he was born in this Angiras Gotra. Angira is one son of Brahma. And he was very well behaved. Samadhiyuktasya Tyagavatra Atitya Bhyo Anudanadi. And he said that he was very renounced or detached, which means that he was giving food to the guests. And Vidya or knowledge here refers to Karma Vidya. As we will read later on, that he was expert Brahmana who were engaged in ritualistic ceremony, but he was not following the path of Jnana. Atma-jnanam dehadi vitrikta bhoktriyatma jnanam atmana sadosha. And he had knowledge about the self. He knew that there is Atma or self besides the body, and self has the characteristics of having experience of pain and pleasure, etc. And spoke about his children. Yastu tatra pumansta tam param bhagavatam rajarshi pravaram bhartam utshristamik sharam sarirani aprattam gatam. So out of these 11 children of this Brahmana, one of our interest is the boy who was the twin from the younger wife. And they say that he was the king Bharat in previous life, and then he became the deer, and now he was born as the son of this Brahmana. And this is supposed to be his last life. Charam Sarirana Vipratvam Gatama. He became a Brahmana, and he was a great devotee in the past life and now also, and a great king. So this is what people say about him. Tatrapi swajan sangatcha bhrisham udvijmano bhagavatah karma bandha vidvansam shravana smarana guna vivarana charnaravinda yugalam mansa vidadahat atmana pratighatam ashankamano bhagavad anugrahena anusmrita swapurva janma avalir atmanam anumatta jadavadhira swarupena darshyanasalokas. So now, because he remembered his past life, both as a king, now he became attached to the deer and fell down from his path, and also as a deer. So Purva Janmavali Atmanam Anumatta. So therefore, and he knew that why did it happen? Because of association with the deer. So now he decided that he is not going to associate with anybody. He has nothing to do with anybody, mother, father, brother. He said, I don't care. I wasted my life already. So he was very much disturbed by any association. And he engaged only in thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, hearing about him, remembering or reciting it. These activities which destroy the karma bandhan or bondage to karma. So this is how he was doing all these things in his mind. So basically he was just internally absorbed in devotional service, and externally he posed himself as completely dull-headed, as if he was deaf and dumb, and also as if he has impairment of sight, and if he cannot see things properly. He just acted like that. So people thought that he is quite stupid, and everybody wondered how this Brahmana got a son like that. All other brothers were quite expert and educated. So the reason was that he did not want that he has to take another birth, that he becomes attached and then he will again engage in some materialistic activities, and then he has to face the karma. So he says, I had enough and no more mistake. So there is a saying that if you get burnt by hot milk, then even when you drink the buttermilk, and usually nobody drinks buttermilk as hot, then you blow on it before you drink, because you are so scared that this can also burn you. So he actually fell into trouble by being attached to the deer. Now he is just so scared that he didn't want to have any attachment with anybody. So that is the message which he is giving. So न स्वजन संगात च भृशम उद्विजमान इति अधिकम च अन्यत्र नास्ति स्वामी असम्मतम च दृश्यते. So he's just talking about a difference in reading, that some part of the sentence is not found in some readings. Vyavdhanena yojitatvat. In any case, he considered everything just as a disturbance. Karma bandha vidvansanam sravanavadikam yasya tatha bhutam charnarvindam visheshena dadat lokasya. So he was specifically meditating on the feet of the Lord, knowing that this is what will get him out of this material world. That was his intention. तथापि हवा आत्मजस्य विप्रः पुत्र स्नेह अनुबद्ध मना असमर्थ समावर्तनात् संस्कारान् यथोपदेशं विदधान उपनीतस्य च पुनः शौच आचमनादीन् कर्म नियमान् अनभिप्रेतान् अपि समशिक्ष्य अनुशिष्टेन हि भावीं पितुः पुत्रेण. So although he was not interested in anything, but his father naturally had compassion on him and his father had love for him, so he wanted to teach him. So previously in India, Brahmanas, their job was to study the Vedas. They would dedicate their life for the study of the Vedas, and then they used to perform yajnas for people who were invited them. They will get some dakshina, or they will teach the Vedas to others. So study of Veda was quite a complicated thing, because it was not that you can just sit down and study. There are 1,000 rules you have to follow. You have to do ashman, you have to sit in a proper way, there are proper time. This is not the time you can study Veda, evening time is not allowed. In many days you cannot study the Veda if it is heavy rain, thundering, or heavy wind. And these are not the times to study Vedas. A lot of rules are there which one has to follow. So, and there are many things one has to study. So he wanted to teach all this to his son because his mind was very much attached to him. And since he was the youngest, then parents are more attached to also to the youngest child. And on top of them, he behaved like a handicap. So then they were more attached to him because he looked like he needed more help than others. So he was even paying more attention to teach him. But Bharat was quite fixed not to learn anything. Not only that he didn't want to associate, he didn't want to learn anything. He said, I don't want any of this stuff. So he thought that he performed all the samskaras for him. Asamavartanat samskara. There are various ceremonies which are still performed in India for people, children, beginning from Garbhadhan, and when the child is born, and then Chodakam samskar, Vidyaram samskar, various types of samskaras which are performed. So he did all the samskaras for him, except the Samavartam samskara, means end of education. So that obviously will be done when his education will be complete. So of course Bharat was not cooperating in any one of these samskaras. He would sit like a complete stupid fellow. Although he knew everything, even from past life he remembered. He has gone through all this. So he knows. But he just didn't pay any attention. And then he was thinking that he is going to teach him how to do achman, because there is a very strict acharan one has to follow, study of the Vedas. If you study and you touch any lower part of your body, you will do asthma. You cannot scratch your head. So he wanted to teach all this to him. Swachachmanadinam. And then there were other, principles of cleanliness. Like you go to toilet, then you have to wash your hand, you have to wash your feet, and in a specific way, because there was no soap in India. Previously they were using mud. So there is a system that how many times you have to wash your both hands, how many times right hand, how many times left hand. Like 5 times, 3 times, 2 times. Then you have to apply mud to your both feet. You have to wash them. Then you have to wash your mouth and then you wash me. Then you are considered as clean. Now you see people, probably most unhygienic place on earth is India now. Everywhere people will spit. But once upon a time, probably India was most hygienic. So they were so careful about hygiene. All this idea, don't touch this, don't touch that, was only from hygiene point of view. And now everywhere you can find spit. Especially if you go to a place like Court, where I went yesterday. Every corner, everywhere is all red with this gutka. Everybody chewing this and spit here, spit there, doing something, throw here, bidi, cigarette, most uncultured thing you see here. And this shows the height of fall down. That people who followed so many principles of cleanliness that nobody in the world even knew those principles. And now it has happened like this. So Achmanadin, Karma Niyaman, and the various types of karmas which they have to perform. You have to wake up before sunrise, you have to chant mantra, you have to rub your hands, your fingers, mantra for chanting before you put your foot on earth. And then the whole process, how you have to pick the twig for washing your teeth, how you have to go when there were no indoor toilets, you have to go outside, how you have to pass stool, all the principles are there in Smriti Shastra. And passing stool, which side you have to face. Yes, it's unbelievable that anywhere you will not find any descriptions like this. And then how you have to clean, and then how you have to take bath, and then put on dress, put on tilak, then do asman, sit down, then do your Gayatri mantra. So these Brahmanas, they spend their whole life doing this. There was no possibility that they could do anything else. There were so many rules to follow. So he had this idea that karma niyaman ananabhipretānapi samasakshya anusashtena. He wanted to train him as real Brahmana. So bhavyam pituhu putrena, but did not work out. Problem with that. So because he considered this as a duty to teach him. Pitanasya syat, later on Bharat himself will speak. That was Prithu Maharaj who already spoke that one should not become a father or a mother or a teacher. You cannot take care of them. So anabhipretamiti sasvadanubhuyaman bhagavad swarupatvena swasya karma anadhikarmannat pitu sakasat. So as far as Bharat Maharaj was concerned, he was not interested in this because he thought that these things are useless for me. I am only interested in performing bhakti and not in all these rituals. So why shall I learn this? So he did not cooperate. Sachapi taduha pitri sannidhau eva sadrichinamiva sma karoti chandansi adhyapishyan saha vyahati bhi sapranava sirastripadim savitrim grasma vashantikan masan abhiyan abhiya sanveta rupam rahamas. So there is one day comes in India in the summer time. This Ashadha Purnima. That is the time they used to start education of the Vedas. So even now here in Vrindavan or at least in some holy places there are a lot of Upanayana Samskar which is done, this thread ceremony. So this thread ceremony is not that you just have a thread and you become a Brahman. This means that now you start studying Vedas. This is like when you go to college these days and you get admission and you get an I card or something. So this Upanayana means that, this thread means that you are admitted in the school and you are a student of the Veda. So this was performed. So before he wanted him to study the Veda, he thought let me teach him the Gayatri at least. So there is also this Vasant Panchami which comes, which we also celebrate, comes usually in February. So that's when that is one semester starts, and then the other one is that Upanayana Sanskar, Pavitra. So he started teaching him, hoping that in these 4 months, Chaitra, Dasa, Jyeshtha and Ashadha, which means February, March, April, May, and then around June time he had. That is when Guru Purnima comes. So he says, then I will start teaching him the Vedas. So he was working very hard to teach him Gayatri. But the boy was doing just the opposite. Because Gayatri will start on Bhuru Vasvat. So the father will say, repeat after me what I say. So he will say Om, Bharat will say Lom. So he said, no, not Om, not Lom, you say Om. So he will say Rom. So he said, what, you are coming from Italy or what? So he will not even say the Om properly. And the father will get very mad at him. He will even slap him. He says, you cannot say Om, and he will say Lom. And he will just sit there. So he tried very hard to make him learn the Gayatri mantra, because Gayatri is the Veda Mata, and this is actually the wealth of the Brahmanas. It is also called Brahma Gayatri or Savitri Gayatri. Every Brahmana is supposed to chant this, but he did not follow. So his idea was that when the rainy season will come, then I will start, because after Ashadha then the rains come in July, then I will teach him the Vedas. In the meantime, in these 2 seasons of spring and summer, I will train him up all the Vyaharitis, Bhur, Vasva, these are the 3 Vyaharitis, and the Pranams, the Om mantra and the Gayatri. But he was not successful. In 4 months, he could not make him learn Gayatri. So what a student he must be. So sa bhartah pitu shiksha nirbandha nivratte tat soch achmanadikam asadri chinam viparyastam mutra purusha utsargadhe prageva achman mrittika sochadikam karoti nato anantrameva. So Bharat was behaving just the opposite of what the father was teaching. He was teaching him principles of cleanliness. So he was telling that when you go to pass urine, after that you have to wash your hands, your leg, your face. So but Bharat will do that, he will wash them first and then go and pass urine and then come back. So the father will say, no, you have to do it after this. So he will not listen. So he will say that you have to rub your hands with mud after this. So he will rub it before and then he will go and he will make a complete mess. So this is how he was behaving. तदपि वस्तुतः समीचीनमेव इति उपाकरणं वेद ग्रहणादि अनन्तरं श्रावणादि मासेषु वेदाध्ययनं अध्यापयिष्यामि. So he was thinking that I will do his upakaran, means this Upanayan samskara, in the Ashad month, in the Shravan Ekadasi comes, so call it Pavitra Rope, and even the deity will change the sacred thread that day, and that is supposed to make you free from the offenses for the whole year. So he says, then I will start him. In the meantime, Samprati tu jadamivam gayatrim tu shikshayami. He says, let me at least teach this dull-head fellow Gayatri. Vicharya Chaitradevi Chaturbhirapi Masai Nirantaram Gayatriya Padkaram Patyam. So for 4 months continuously he was just trying to teach him this Gayatri. Tam dharetum nasashape. So but he was not successful. So Bharat was completely determined not to learn. Not to learn means to show that I don't know anything. He knew it. But he was completely fixed in his act, that I will continue to act as if I don't understand anything. Because he was so determined, he has suffered as a deer and he did not want one more life. So absolute zero interest. I said, I'm not bothered. Not all your karma kanda. This is not, my birth is not for that. So therefore he did not learn anything. Evam swatanujay atmani anuraga aveshita chittaha शौच अध्ययन व्रत नियम गुरुवनल शुश्रूषणा आदि औपकुर्वाणक कर्माणि अनभियुक्तानि अपि समनुशिष्टेन भाव्यम् इति असद्ग्राह्य पुत्रम् अनुशास्य स्वयं तावद् अनधिगत मनोरथ कालेन अप्रमत्तेन स्वयं गृहे एव प्रमत्तौ सन्ति. So in this way, when he was trying to teach him and he did not learn at all, so still father was affectionate towards him. He was not thinking that I should neglect him. So thinking that he is my son and I must teach him, so he still thought that let me teach him. So he continued to teach him about the principles of cleanliness, about the various rules to be followed. You have to fast on certain days, and other principles, and how to worship the Guru, and how to worship the fire, which means doing the yajna, agnihotra. It's important, morning, evening one has to do it. And the principles of brahmacharya ashram. So he continued to give him lessons. But although he was busy and and he tried, but he could not be successful in it. And he was just absorbed in teaching the son and not into the devotion of the Lord, and busy in household affairs. And in the meantime, his death came. So, kalena apramattena swayam graheva pramattavasana. Time which never forgets. It is we who forget that we are going to die. We don't think that we die. But the death did not forget that. So suddenly his time came to die. Svatamaja putre atmani snehat swapranadapi adhiketyat. So he loved his son more than even his own life. Op kurvanakasya savdhan savdhi brahmacharya vrata karmani tena anaviyuktani nadritani api. So he was teaching him the principles of brahmacharya. There are two types of brahmacharya: those who are lifelong brahmacharis, they are called nastiki brahmachari, and those who remain brahmachari till they complete their education, those are called Upkurvana. So he was teaching him the principles of Upkurvana brahmachari. But the son did not pay any attention. And then his death came and he died. So now the father was gone. So the Barak felt very relieved. And there's no one to teach him. I'm free. Because the brothers, they were all married and they are busy in their own activities. They have probably their own children, they are not going to teach him. अथ यवीयसी द्विजसती स्वगर्भजातं मिथुनं सपत्न्यामुपन्यस्य स्वयं अनुसंस्थया पतिलोकमगमात्. So now, because he had two wives, the younger one had only two sons, one daughter and one son. So she told to the elder one that, look, you have 9 children and I offer my 2 children to you, you please take care of them and I will give up my life with the husband. So just as in the case of King Pandu, who had 2 wives, Kunti and Madri, and Madri decided to burn herself or do sati. So like that she also did, that she followed the husband. So Pati Lokam Agat. So she burned herself alive with the dead body of her husband. Can you imagine this?
Can't imagine.
So this is what people were doing. People think that this was a law. There was no law. They used to do that by will. Burning yourself alive. So can you imagine that there could be divorce in such a culture? Therefore there is no word for divorce in Sanskrit. So there was no divorce. So it's very difficult to understand this. Of course later on degradation came and it also happened by force, that people were forcing women to burn along with the husband. But originally it was not like that. It was by choice, because they didn't want to live without husband. They had so much love, affection or attachment, whatever you call it, and they thought living without husband was worse than dying. So they will willfully do that, and it is described. So sapatnei उपन्यस्य सपत्न्यामिति सप्तम्यन्तोपि पाठः अनुसंस्थानुमानेन सप्तम्यन्त पाठः. So this says that she just followed the husband, means burnt herself. So this was the biggest relief for Bharat. Because now no mother, no father. In any way, the brother, what responsibility they can give him. He was good for nothing. He was useless. So he will just wander here and there, like we have these street bulls. They are eating. So like that he will just bag little things, or maybe do some work in somebody's house, get a food and walk. That's how I started living. Pitari uparate bhratara enam atat prabhava vida astrayam vidyayam eva parevasita matayo na parvidyayam jadamatiriti bhratara anusasana nirbandha nyam nivratam. So when the father died, then the brothers, they thought that this fellow, he is completely foolish, because they were also educated only in the ritualistic part of the Vedas, Karma Kanda. And they were thinking that this is the best part of the Vedas. They were ignorant about the transcendental knowledge, about the philosophy of the Vedas. And therefore they did not know the greatness of Bharat. If that is not their field, if that is not their subject, how they can recognize? If there was some devotee, they would have recognized him. But they thought that he is just dullard, he is good for nothing, and therefore they were just neglecting him. And when the father died, then they did not made any endeavor to teach him anything. And they thought, anyway, our father tried so much. This guy didn't learn, didn't have the brain to learn, so forget him. So anusishtavati iti shesha enam anusishtavati pitri uprate sati. When they realized that the father, he himself could not teach him, so they also did not make any effort. Navritsan navritti tumichanlangi varupam. So natu pita eva tasmin ati agravanta. In other words, what he's saying is that they did not stress anymore like the father, who was specifically taking care of him. To teach him, they didn't make any effort like that. So he was just left by himself and somehow survived. So how did he survive? That is being described now. Because naturally he was not married, others were married, they were family people. This guy, who is going to marry him? He is not educated, he is not even behaving normally. Sacha prakritai dvipad pasubhir unmat jadabadhir ityabhi bhashyamano yada tadanurupani prabhasate karmani cha sakarimane parachya karoti vishtito vetanto va yancha yadrichya va upsaritam alpam bahu nishtam kadannam vabhyarti param nendriya priti nimittam. So what was he doing? That he was not bothered about any respect, that people should respect him. He didn't care. So people thought he is like an animal. So they will actually call him mad. Oh, he is a mad fellow. They will call him, even they will call him, oh mad, come here. So he will not get disturbed by that. Some people will call him foolish, some people call him deaf, dumb, and whoever did whatever, he will respond like that. If they will call him, oh deaf, then he will say, what? And if he is not listening. So, and he was very happy doing that. In one village there was one foolish person like that. And everybody used to make fun of him. So one day, in one family in the village, there was a guest, and this man was passing in front of the house. So this host was telling to the guest that this person you see is very stupid, and he doesn't know anything. So he says, really? He says, yeah. He says, look, I'll show you how foolish he is. So he called him, and he put coins, one dime and one nickel. Right? You call it nickel, right?
Nickel.
So nickel is 5 cents in America, and it is a bigger in size. And dime is 10 cents, and it is small in size. So he put one nickel and one dime on a plate, and he called this fellow that you take one of these coins. So the fellow, he picked up the nickel, which means 5 cents. He should have picked up the dime, 10 cents, and he is given the choice. But he was stupid, so he's thinking that because it looks big, it should be more. And nickel is thicker and bigger, and dime is smaller and thin. And then he was walking away. So this guest felt very compassionate on him. He said, this guy doesn't know the difference between nickel and dime. So he walked behind him and he says, please stop. And he said, yes. He says, do you know that this is actually 5 cents and the other one was 10 cents? You should know that this one, if you have to pick up, you should have picked up the other one. So he said, actually you don't understand. I said, what? He said, if I pick up the dime, then it will stop there. That will be the end of it. They will never ask me to do that. So I picked the nickel. Next day again he will call me, I pick the nickel. So I got 5 cents. If I pick dime once, then it will stop. So sometimes it is good to be stupid.
It's good to be stupid. It pays to be stupid.
Right? So Bharat Maharaj was stupid like that. He was not even picking the nickel. So he behaved like that. That if whatever somebody thought of him, that he doesn't know how to count, when they will ask him to count, then he will start counting topsy-turvy, upside down. So he said that he will behave exactly as if he is completely unmat, mad, stupid, deaf. Yada tadanurupani prabhaste karmani cha sakaramana prayacha karati. And then he will do work little bit to eat. So if they ask him to do something, he will do it. Otherwise they will think that he is clever. So he will think less like children. And sometimes they will give him some food for that. Or sometimes he will do some labor work. Or he will beg. And whatever he will get, he will eat that. Sometimes he will get good thing to eat, sometimes he will get some rotten stuff to eat. So he was not attached to the taste at all. Not that I have to get only bread. So khichdi was also alright. And if he got bread, that was also fine. So he was completely absorbed in his inner meditation and no interest in anything external. Nitya nivritta nimitta swasiddha vishuddha anubhavananda swatma labhadika. So he was completely detached, Nityananda. And he was always absorbed in the bliss of his inner meditation on the Lord. So externally he looked quite stupid, but internally he was most elevated. Sukh dukkhyor dandva nimityor asambhavita dehavimana. And he had absolutely no attachment to the body. He will tolerate heat, cold, hunger, thirst. Manam manyor tulyam. Tulyamitrari pakshya. Krishna says that behaved same. Somebody is praising him, that's also fine. Somebody is criticizing, no problem. Somebody is behaving like a friend, like an enemy, he remains balanced completely. So this is a very elevated stage of yoga. Samattham yoga uchyate. So mulya mantrena balat yat karyate savishti nityam sadaiva purjanmani ati nivittam. So sometimes people will force him to do some work, not pay. He will do that also. Later on also we will see how he will be engaged by this king to carry the palanquin. He will agree to do that. So he was completely detached and had no interest in anything. Sasiddhena swatayava siddhena visuddhena aprakritena anubhavanandena. Because he was getting his inner antararama tatha antarjyotirayana. Yavanta sukha antararama tatha antarjyotirayana. He was enlightened within. He was having the inner light in him, antarjyoti, and taking pleasure with him. Bhayasparsha svasaktatma nivyatsukha. Sa brahma yoga yuktatma vindati atma. So one who is not interested in the external sense pleasures, Bhayasparsha svasaktatma, no attachment to the external pleasure. And Vindati Atmani Yatsukam, who seeks pleasure only within. So that is called Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. So he gets the Atma Sukha, the inner pleasure, the spiritual happiness. So there are two types of happiness, one which comes from the senses, one which comes from within, or from the spiritual platform. And because he was so much naturally having it, Swata Siddha, Vishuddha, pure, not by any effort. Svaishta Devasya Krishnasya Labhadikam. He was completely absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Labha Pratitiri Yasmin Sacha Sacha Sa Deva. And therefore nothing disturbed him externally. It's like when you become absorbed in some activity, materially, you may be absorbed in playing or reading something or music, then you forget everything else. So like that, because he was absorbed within, and nothing external was able to trouble him. Not that he was trying to tolerate or anything. Sammanana avamanana adini tad hetupayo sukha dukkhyo rakrita dehabhimana. He was not identifying with his body. Therefore he knew that if somebody is praising, he is praising the body and not the body. If somebody is criticizing, he is also criticizing the body and not the body. Ateva naindriya pritir nimittam abhyavarti. So therefore he was not eating for the sake of his body or senses, not just because he has to survive. So he is eating for that reason. So we'll stop here if there is any questions. sound stop.
So the actual comfort zone, Babaji, that most people are trying to achieve and maintain comes from wanting, it's very similar, dissimilar from what we've been discussing here. Just wanting to keep everybody happy and pleased with you so that you can always feel good from the external.
That's what people are doing because they have no knowledge of the internal. So what they know is external and that's what they try. What can they do?
Ignorance is not always bliss.
Sometimes, yes.
For example, the father, he was completely dedicated to his duty also to try to teach him, although he could also see that he will never, after some time he also could understand that this guy will never understand, but still he was.
Yeah, he was trying.
And also the love, this kind of love that the father had, and this kind of sense of duty. Same for the mother that he had this kind of love, this kind of push to how we can define this. This makes confusion in this idea of love. Because it seems that he loves him so much that he was ready to spend thousands of years trying to get him into this important knowledge. And then the wife also, he was loving him so much that he was ready to get burn in the fire and so on. So it looks like, wow, amazing. But then, he didn't want nothing of that.
Yeah, at least if not spiritual love, they had material love. Bharat, of course, you see there is a contrast between material love and spiritual love. And both are shown here. That is the meaning of Purnimansa and Uttarmimansa. These are the two parts of the Vedas. But even if you live here, in the material world, then live here also peacefully and happily. That's what Purnimansa is. Although the real purpose of human life is not just being comfortable here, but to get out of this cycle of birth and death. But even while aiming for that, you should live happily here. All right.